And a good Monday morning to you on your July 4th. I'm meteorologist Peyton Malone giving you your about 10 a.m. update on what's going on out in the tropics after things got a bit busy last week and in the weekend, and now things are returning back to being quiet. We're going to go over an overview of what we saw last week, but let's briefly go over what's going on out there right now, because really not a whole lot. Now, there are a couple tropical waves, but what I've done here is I've overlaid the Saharan dust, that dry air that we've got right now, and things have really settled down over the past 2 days or so. Now, we've still got Bonnie. I'm going to talk more about Bonnie in a second, because this was an Atlantic system. Now it's an Eastern Pacific system. So more on that in a second. You can see there it's a hurricane, but the Gulf is quiet. There is a tropical wave traveling over Cuba, with some moisture towards the Hispaniola Islands and up towards Cuba. That'll move towards South Florida over the next couple of days. Probably enhanced rain chances there with some heavier rain possible, but wind shear and dry air are very prominent in this part of the Atlantic right now and near this tropical wave, so it's not expected to do anything. And then if you look deeper in the Atlantic, things have really settled down there as well. Notice not a whole lot going on down here close you get to the equator, and lots of dry, dusty air moving out over the Atlantic. So things are going to remain quiet out here, it looks like, for a little while. And typically not uncommon to have a very quiet July. Even in the busy seasons, sometimes July, not a whole lot is going on. So here's what happened. On Friday, Bonnie formed in the southern Caribbean. And then later that night and early Saturday morning, a trough of low pressure was able to organize enough over the Gulf Stream off the eastern coast of the U.S. and Colin formed. So a lot of people are probably thinking, when did Colin get crossed off? Well, it was a short-lived tropical storm that formed off the eastern coast, and it did not last very long. It is long gone. Here was the track of it. It started out as a trough of low pressure, just kind of an area of storms, and then part of it got over the eastern parts of the coast here. The Gulf Stream, that's that fetch of warm water that travels up along the east coast. That was enough fuel for this thing to organize, became a tropical storm, and then not even 24 hours later was already on its way to becoming the remnants of Colin. So that formed off the coast of Georgia, South Carolina, and into North Carolina, and brought them some rain and some gusty winds. And now it is long gone. So we have our third name crossed off the list here. Our average time or average date for the sea storm, our third name storm, is usually in August. So we are way ahead of schedule with that. As I mentioned earlier, we've been tracking Bonnie, and what was a PTC2, and then it became Bonnie, and then it hit Central America and crossed to the Pacific. Still has the name Bonnie, and what's interesting about it is this is the most organized it's ever been. It's actually opened up an eye. We can even zoom in on it this morning, and you can see there an eye trying to form, so this is expected to continue to strengthen. The reason this still has the name Bonnie and it did not get renamed when it crossed into the Pacific Basin is because it never lost its circulation. It was always a tropical storm. It never got below a tropical depression there, and it kept its circulation. So here was the path of it, and it has to go into a really prime area in order to keep its status as Bonnie, which is quite rare. It hasn't happened since 2016 with Otto, so it doesn't happen very often. But whenever a storm approaches Central America, it has to hit a very specific area, the thinnest part, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, anywhere in there, down towards Panama, where it's a thin little area, and that is not enough land to disrupt the circulation. In this case, it was just the prime location. You could see there, it coupled with the mountainous terrain, it missed the high mountains in Costa Rica. Nicaragua is pretty flat compared to Costa Rica, and it traveled in one of the flattest parts of Central America. You could see it moved over there, and then was in the Pacific and re-strengthened. So that's why it is still Bonnie, and it looks like it's going to continue to remain Bonnie over the next probably 5 days or so as it encounters favorable conditions to continue to intensify. And that's been the track in the Pacific, now on its way to a Cat 2 hurricane. So once again, while the Atlantic Basin looks like it's going to quieten down and settle down over the next week or so, it is not necessarily a reflection on what the rest of the season looks like. We always get into June and July and things aren't really active, and people are thinking, okay, this was a busted forecast. And really, July sometimes just is inactive, and it goes through these periods. Now, it does look like as we head into August, climatology tells us that things usually start to ramp up. And you can see this here, a breakdown when you look back after all these decades, percentage of storms that form by month. August is dramatically more active than July. And July and June are typically not very active. Even in busy seasons, sometimes July is pretty inactive. So just enjoy the quiet Atlantic Basin while we can, because things are likely to ramp up in August, maybe early August. And then, of course, climatology and history tells us by late August and September, things are very, very active, and sometimes even in busy seasons that can continue into October as well. So we do still have the majority of hurricane season ahead of us. June and July are usually our quieter months, along with November as well. So that does it for our 4th of July Monday morning update on the tropics. Nothing to worry about right now as wind shear and dry air take over, but of course we will continue to track it for you. But I think for now things are going to settle down for at least a little while. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a safe and happy 4th of July.